Welcome to the Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Mace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, legendary disc jockey, host, and stand-up comedian, Frazer Smith.
My brother Frank. How you doing, pal? How's everything today?
Good.
You got the Joe West golf shirt on?
It's got the Joe West golf shirt. That means Joe will be joining us a little bit later in the show.
Sweet Joe.
As soon as we are finished with legendary disc jockey and comic and stand-up host, Frazer Smith.
He's been at it forever, right? He's really been around a long time. Man, a real old pro.
Here he is, like you.
I'm just old. I ain't no pro. Old prophylactic.
No prophylactic. I was when I was caddying at Ridgeway Country Club back in White Plains, New York. Was carrying for a guy. I said he hit an iron on the green like stiff to the pin. I said, "You hit that like a real pro," and he said, "Yeah, prophylactic."
Prophylactic.
Well, so what do you want to talk about today? While we're waiting for Frazer, what's new in your world? You've been sailing lately?
Actually, I've been doing a little sailing. I went up to Santa Barbara, and we're going to hit the islands. But now, actually, which really blows my mind, being from the East Coast, but California, the water down by the ocean, it's so cold, it's ridiculous. But October.
I know it didn't make your dick shrink.
Oh, yeah. It did. Oh, yeah. Seems impossible, but yes, it got even smaller. It becomes like a sumo wrestler. It's such a retreat like a turtle into where it belongs. Shrinkage, as they said in Seinfeld. But what amazed me is you can jump in the water in August, and it's freezing in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But October, it gets warm because of the currents and stuff. It's September, late September, early October is the best time to swim in California. I mean,
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, if you ever.
The last time I swam in California was never. I'm trying to think. Have I ever swum in the ocean?
You got to tell me you've been in the Pacific. You got to tell me you've been in the Pacific Ocean. How can you be from the East Coast?
Have I ever swum?
Go out to California and never go into the Pacific Ocean?
Have I ever swum in the ocean? I've been in the ocean maybe up to my knees.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've never swum in the ocean. I don't like to swim.
Did you get your high heels caught in the
I'm definitely afraid of drowning. I'm definitely afraid of drowning.
So you didn't get your high heels caught in the sand on your way up to your ankles?
I didn't acknowledge that the first time.
I was just insinuating. I don't know what I was insinuating, actually.
These people who dive into the ocean?
Yeah.
Ooh,
you don't get it.
I don't get it. I've been in Hawaii. I went snorkeling once.
Okay. Wow.
Went snorkeling once. And I was amazed at how beautiful the water was and the fish.
The whole life underneath the water. Yeah. I can't believe it.
What do you go to Hawaii for? Like, what do you go there for?
I went there to go snorkeling. Did that a satisfactory? I went there to play golf. I went there to native.
I guess.
And the golf courses in Hawaii, is there really
there's grass on
an 800-yard hole or something in Hawaii? Is that true that there's one golf hole that's like 800 yards or something on one of the courses?
I don't know.
But the courses you play were gorgeous?
Yeah, sure, of course. I think I want to play a public course.
I'm sorry, I lost my head.
Ever since they got that Mercedes, he's been a little
a little haughty-taughty.
Yeah.
Haughty-taughty. He's like he likes to.
Please.
He's one of the regular people. He's one of us.
I've had a Porsche since 1978.
You have. It's a nice one too.
You've had your communion money too since way back when. A Porsche is not. I liked driving your Porsche. I drove it up in Pebble, and it's kind of cool. I mean, it was a cool car to drive. One car I can't stand, and I don't know why anybody likes it, is Corvettes. Have you ever driven a Corvette?
No.
I think it sucks. I don't get it.
Well, that's an automatic.
Not the new one.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the new ones.
The new ones are amazing.
Is it an automatic?
Yes. Well,
this is not a Corvette then.
Well, it doesn't have to.
You feel like you're in a rocket ship. I mean, you're down so bloody low. It's like, to me, it's uncomfortable.
How old were you when you drove this Porsche?
I was.
Porsche.
I could tell you exactly.
I mean, Corvette.
The Corvette, I was exactly 24 years old. I was in New Orleans. I was dating a girl who was going out with an older guy who bought her a Corvette. And I used to drive the Corvette while he was in Mississippi.
Were terrible. Yeah, those were terrible.
Yeah, the car was a disaster. I couldn't understand what's the rush about this car. I had an Austin Healey at the time, a 66 Austin. The Vinny got for me.
Yeah.
My boy Vinny got me the car. $1,000.
And he made $750. And he made $1,000 profit.
He definitely made $1,000.
He made $1,000 profit.
What color you want? It's not like an Austin Healey. What color you want? Here's the keys. Don't drive in Riverdale. Okay. Yeah, but that car was cool. That car was out of sight. I love that car. So my brother took a blowtorch and cut away the front end.
Why did you do that?
Oh, my brother. Because my brother, I left the car like an idiot in New Orleans when I flew back to New York, and he was going to drive the car up. Well, he found out that his wife at the time, Connie, was fucking around with Jimmy Ellis, the fighter. Right? He was sparring. She was working in Muhammad Ali's camp. She was one of the girls that walks around with the ring,
cards, yeah.
with the card, hold it up. Good looking girl. So she was screwing around with Jimmy Ellis. And Timmy was offshore. So Timmy came back from offshore and he tells me, I think I got a problem. I think Connie's fucking around. I said, yeah. He says, what's the problem? Break the guy's ass. He says, well, that's the problem. He says, she's screwing around with Jimmy Ellis.
At one time, Jimmy Ellis was the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
he split with Frazer. Him and Frazer had a piece of the crown. And then I think they united it, and then Frazer fought Ali. But yeah, so what he did was, at the time, he was out drinking, and biphenamine was a big thing at the time. The black beauties, they called them. You could take the speed, it's like you took a half of these things and you couldn't eat for 3 days. It was one of those things. So Timmy took a big mouthful of biphenamine, and she was screwing around. She was working as a cocktail waitress up at some bar in Mississippi. And he drove up to Mississippi in my Austin Healey. And the guy she was the cocktail waitress. There was a guy on stage, the bass player, and he got wind that she was fucking around with the bass player. So he waited till the break and he went up there and took a bar stool and cracked it over the guy's head. Started a brawl, got thrown out of the bar, took about 6 ups and said, 6 biphenamine, and said, I'm going to drive the car to New York. And he pulls up with my car, and I see the whole front end is cut off with a blowtorch.
Oh, my God.
I mean, there's nothing there. It's like, the wheels, and my Austin Healey is shot. And I said to my brother's like this, 3 teeth are all clenched. His eyes are out like this from all the speed. He drove straight from Mississippi to New York.
Wow.
And he's like this. And I said, Timmy, what the hell did you do to my car? He says, your car? What did your car do to me? He says, never mind what I did to your car. What did your car do to me? I said, what happened? He said, I kept getting flat tires. So I figured it was the front end. So I blew away the front end with a blowtorch.
Dude, that was a different time.
Oh
my God.
Man, that was the end of my Austin Healey.
That was the end of your Austin Healey.
That was the end
Indeed.
of my Austin Healey.
Nobody
had an Austin He.
Yeah.
My brother, I swear to
There's
God.
no story like this in the world.
My brother was amazing. I left the Austin Healey down there. I was in New York 1 month before he drove the thing up and wrecked it. He must have called me up 4 times in that month. I got some bad news for you. What's the matter? The car got stolen. The car got stolen. What happened? Yeah, I had it parked in a French Quarter. I went over there. It was all broken glass, and the car was missing. About 3 hours later, oh, it's okay, I found it. I had it parked someplace else. It happened me 4 times. One time he called me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I think I told you this story. Stop me if I did. Called me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm next to my wife, Teresa, at the time. I'm next to, the phone rings, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's a trouble. 3 o'clock in the morning, it's got to be bad. I pick it up. I had 3 kids at the time, too. Pick it up, Timmy. Hey, Billy, it's me, Timmy. Yeah, Timmy, what's wrong? No, nothing's wrong. He said, I'm sitting in the Laguna Beach Club with John Wayne. I said, okay. I said, you're in the Laguna Beach Club with John Wayne? Yeah, I'm telling you right here. I'm going to put him on the phone with you. I said, okay, yeah, Timmy, right. 3 o'clock in the morning, John. And I get the voice, hello, Bill? This is the Duke. For about 30 seconds, I said, all right, cool. Put my brother back on. I said, all right, you got some asshole imitating John Wayne? No, I'm telling you, I'm sitting here with John Wayne. Yeah. So that's my brother. You never knew what was up and what was down.
Derek, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How long have we been doing this show?
4 years.
Have you ever heard that story?
No, exactly. And it's like, also, who in the world has a brother who cuts off the front half of their car.
My brother. Let me tell you a story about my brother. I mean, my brother was out of his marbles. My brother made me look like I was like, a recluse. I went to a chick one day in New Orleans. Some girl I picked up in the French Quarter. And I was living with my brother and this guy, Roy. Roy Silbert was the voice. When Wolfman Jack and all that shit was going on, he was like a DJ, a local DJ in New Orleans. And Timmy'd say to me, we'd be driving to the court. He goes, hey, I wonder what kind of drugs Roy's got. He says, turn on the radio. Let's see what kind of drug Roy's on. And he turned on the radio and Roy be going, here's Roy, I got the hits, I got the thing, I'm moving, I'm spinning the disc, I got this we got coming up. He says, Roy's got speed. And then he turned on the radio. See what Roy's up to. This is Roy Silbert with another 45 minutes of uninterrupted music. Roy's got downs. Unbelievable. But
why would somebody want downs?
Because it's like going back to the womb. It's like a heroin high.
Okay.
People feel very secure. They're like, I gotta wake
secure.
up. It's like downs make you like. And of course, if you do downs, you do a little coke with it. It's get back to even.
Normal.
You go down, you go up, you go back to the emotional escalator. But anyway, I pick up this chick in the French Quarter, and I'm in Iraq with her, and all of a sudden she starts screaming. And I'm thinking, new marshal in town here, she's going nuts. And then I see her, she's pointing like this. And I look over, it's my brother. He's down on his hands and knees. He's opening the bedroom door and he's peeping in. I said, Timmy, what are you doing? Get out of here. Come on. He goes, I'm just hanging out. I said, get out of here. Fucking nut. He was always like that, out of his mind. I got a lot of stories about that screwball.
That's crazy.
Well, speaking of screwballs, let's bring on Frazer Smith.
Yeah, we will.
Too hip for the room?
Too hip for the room.
Frazer Smith.
Sounds good. I got to talk to Frazer about his stand-up and everything else. What storied career, huh? Really great career.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
There he is, himself. Frazer Smith, himself.
Smith. The legendary Frazer Smith.
Himself. There he is.
Still too hip for the room.
I am very hip, yeah.
Should we ask him to turn his
Landscape. Are you on an iPhone or iPad?
Well, it's actually a Galaxy.
Oh, okay. If you could turn your phone landscape versus portrait.
Oh, okay. Is that better?
Look a bit askew.
That's actually my good side there. All right, there we go.
Well, for whatever reason, it's not doing what
So it's not doing anything. Oh, okay.
Just
You
leave
may
it
have
there.
this. You may have the screen locked.
Yeah.
No, you can't leave it there because it's.
No, not there. I mean, just. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We'll just leave it there. Uh-oh.
It
Well, like this.
must have a screen lock.
How's that? There we go.
Oh,
Like an astronaut.
Hang on, Mike Mussolini.
how you doing, Dave? Frazer?
Well, I'm good, guys. I'm good. How are you guys?
You remember
Doing
Billy?
good. I don't know if you remember me, but I'll remind you the story where we met.
You did his show.
Yeah, I know. I'll remind him of the story. He did so many shows. He's going to remember me.
Yeah, and that's Derek Harris.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
Good. How you doing?
And a reminder, I'm
Good,
Frank
good.
Bass.
I give you a quick story how we met. You were doing Jeffrey Peterson, the 420 comic. He's a friend of yours. Apparently, Jeffrey hooked me up with you and said that I might be able to do your show for an interview. I was pushing a book at the time called Confessions of a Bronx Bookie. And
I do remember. I remember that. And my ratings immediately sunk.
that's not a surprise. So did the
Yeah.
book.
I don't know what else.
So-
No, I do remember it. Yeah. And I talked to Jeff yesterday.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yeah.
That particular night, I was in the green room waiting to go on, and Carmela Cleese was pushing a book about her father, John Cleese, and Kelly Carlin was in the green room also pushing a book about her father, George, and I was pushing Confessions. And I was all set to give my spiel, Confessions, blah, bing, I'm going to push the book about being a bookie, sports, corruption in sports, the whole deal. I came on, I sat down. The first thing Frazer looked at me and said, so, welcome to the show, Billy O'Connor, nice to see you. So you think 9/11 was an inside job? I was like, whoa, right to the heart of the matter. You did your homework. You were good. Really good. I had a good
Oh,
time on that.
I needed to know that. And everyone's got a book, don't they? Come on.
Yeah, we've got 3 of them.
I think everybody's got a book.
We've done 3.
And everybody's a stand-up comic too, by the way. Everybody's a comic, right? Everybody but everybody.
Yeah,
That's right.
so let me ask you.
Are you guys doing stand-up now?
Well, Billy's been doing stand-up for 5, 6, 7 years.
I did it for about.
Oh, Billy has, yeah.
Yeah, I did it for about 7, 8 years. I know a lot of guys you know, like John DeResta and Darren Carter. Well, like good friends of mine. I know a lot of the guys that you know. I see you in those circles. Of course, you're still doing comedy. I stopped after COVID came. I was because I didn't start doing comedy till I was like 65. I was in college, and I got hooked up.
Well, you can't start too early.
Yeah, I was looking to be the darling of the nursing homes. You know what I mean? That's what I was shooting for. And
It's always a good gig. They can't escape.
yeah, you got to sit there as they're dribbling over your jokes, without a doubt.
Oh.
So, Frazer, you started your legendary career on radio at K-Rock in 1976.
Well, actually, I started in Detroit. I'm from Detroit, and I was on a show there for many years before I came to the West Coast. And then, my first station in Los Angeles was K-Rock.
And what was that like? That was in Pasadena, wasn't it?
It was Pasadena. It was in a hotel. It was in the Pasadena Hilton. And it was, I keep looking this way because I'm watching the Michigan game. They finally got some yardage and finally scored. They looked terrible this year. It was really weird because they didn't have any money, and it was run by gangsters, and they had it in a little suite, like a suite at the hotel. And it's really old equipment. It was, coming from Detroit, I've been on a big station there, and I was kind of disappointed when I saw what was going on here. But everybody told me, but it's the favorite little station in town. Everybody's listening to it. And it was true. Everybody was tuning into K-Rock because they were playing new music. They were playing the punk rock and new wave music, which was fresh and new to everybody. And so everyone was kind of tuning into this little station. And then we moved across the street to a little 2-story building. It had been like a nurse's place. I don't know what it was. But anyway, it was this little tiny building. And K-Rock set up there, and they had an AM station, too. It was AM and FM. And we broadcast out of there. And the Pasadena Hilton was... they had a lounge there, and Van Halen was the band in the lounge.
Wow.
And nobody knew who they were. And David Lee Roth used to come across the street after their final set of the night and climb up the fire escape and climb in through the window and kick in the door of my studio and try to get me to play his test pressing. Whoa. And the band's test pressing. And I would throw him out. I go, get out of here, man. I'm doing a show. Who are you? I did that for weeks and weeks, and finally I go, all right, I'm going to play it just to get him off my back. And I played Ain't Talking About Love from the first album. And, the phones lit up. Back then, that's how you could tell if you had a hit, is if the phones lit up. So that was, their first introduction to radio.
Wow. Now, let me, when you first started at K-Rock, how old were you? How many years did you do it in Detroit before you went to K-Rock?
I was in Detroit for probably 5 years. And K-Rock, I was like 23, I think, 22, 24.
Man. So you were 23, your testosterone's going through the roof. You got a hit radio show. It's that period of time is a lot of shit going on. Women, drugs, rock and roll.
I tried to stay away from all that, guys.
But you didn't succeed.
No, I tried. I tried to stay away from all of it. Wasn't maybe all that successful. And that was a wild time for me for sure. And it was crazy because K-Rock didn't have any dough, but you were still the toast of the town, and that's what was kind of weird about it because all of a sudden. Yeah, I had all the drugs and all the women and all the everything that comes with that, and it was just so odd because it looks like you're in a failing situation, but everyone in town, you're the highlight. I went to a party, and Johnny Carson was there, and he said, "I hear Frazer Smith is here."
Wow.
You know, yeah, it was like,
That's wild.
it was really bizarre. And I think really it was just timing. They always say it's about, timing. And I was there at a time when everybody was looking at that little station and really going there primarily, I think, for the music. It was Rodney Bingenheimer was there, and Rodney was working for NME, which is the English equivalent of Rolling Stone magazine. And so he knew all the bands, all the new bands that were coming up. And he would just tell us, "Hey, play these guys, play the Clash." And nobody knew who the Clash was, and play the Sex Pistols. And, oh, okay, and so you'd start playing that kind of new music. And so everybody thought you were hip, but really it was just Rodney telling us what to do.
Right.
So he had the ear. He had a great ear for spotting talent. He knew.
Yeah, Rodney really did. He could spot. He had a good ear for music, and could pick a hit, and could pick a hit band. And all the bands were coming and hanging out there. I remember my first night on the air at K-Rock, I met Tom Petty, the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, and Deborah Harry.
All on the same night.
All the same night, and nobody knew who they were, and they didn't have any product. None of them had any product. And Tom Petty was there, and Rodney goes, "They're all going to be huge, man." And of course, you're like, "Yeah, right, Rodney."
He was dead.
But they all were huge, not long from then.
Super huge. Wow.
Petty was out of Gainesville, Florida, and he didn't have anything out at that time either. Nothing at that year. Right?
Nobody had anything out,
Wow.
but they had stuff like Petty's album came out shortly after that. Blondie was coming out. They all had stuff coming out, but nobody knew who they were, and except a few of the hipsters in L.A. and in London and New York, and basically, and Rodney had a beat on everything. He was way ahead on everything. So that was the first night I was on the air. I met all those guys.
Did they come to Pasadena?
Yeah, they were in Pasadena. They were in the hotel.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So Van Halen was a Pasadena band.
Yeah,
they were local.
Yeah, they're Pasadena guys, and they were playing the circuit. They would play backyard parties and bars, and just like all bands, trying to get better. And they would play on the Strip. They would play Gazzarri's and play like 5 sets a night, and that's where they got good. But yeah,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
they played everything. I hear stories now about people that went to see them in backyard parties, and they'd see this amazing guitar player, and they'd be like, word of mouth travels fast. But I think that was their first radio exposure.
Yeah, there's a memorial marker outside of their house in Pasadena. It says Van Halen grew up here.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Was there a lot of groups that you saw in them days coming along, guys that you thought were really going to make it and never made it? Was there any of them situations like it?
There were, and some bands you just couldn't figure why they didn't make it. There was a band called the Falcons who I thought were really good, and they opened. I did a couple of shows where they worked with me, and I don't know what happened to them. They were big. I thought they were going to be big. The Motels were really good, and they kind of disappeared. A lot of bands that were there for a while and then kind of disappeared.
Yeah, when you at the moment you're still doing a radio show. You're just doing a stand up, or you're writing, or what's your into?
Well, I'm doing a couple of podcasts. I have a podcast on Bill Burr's network, the All Things Comedy Network.
Right.
It's a hockey podcast, and I do it with Joe Bartnick and Andy Picaro. I'm a hockey fan, coming from Michigan, and we've been doing this for a while. It's called Puck Off, and it's just for hockey fans. But we're really into that thing, and it's going well. I do another podcast at Laugh Factory on the Laugh Factory Network, and with Melrose Larry from the Howard Stern Show.
Uh-huh.
And I'm doing that. And then I'm negotiating again with KLOS. We're talking now about another show.
That's great.
Oh yeah, we know Joe. I know Joe Botnick pretty well. I mean, he used to open for Burr, and Paul Verzi's been on the show. You know, I'm sure you know Paul because
Paul Verzi, a tremendous comic,
yeah,
right?
he's great. He's been on the show. Paul's a good friend of ours. But Botnick, yeah, I know Botnick's complete hockey nut. So you two guys must puck off. Must be right there. Good stuff.
Well, I kind of just sit there. You know, Joe does all the heavy lifting on that show because he knows hockey inside out. You know,
he's got a face like a goalie anyway. That never wore a mask, Joe. He's got a face.
I'm going to tell him you said that. But
he's not close to me. If he was in the same room with me, I might not say it, but he's far away, so no problem.
No, he's a great guy, you know, and a really good comic too. You know, he opens for Bill, and they play all over the world, and you know, they did some big dates. They did Madison Square Garden together and a bunch of shows. So I'm having fun with that. And the one with Melrose is funny too because Melrose is just a character. You know, he's just really a wacky guy. And that was kind of Jamie Masada's idea, the owner of the Laugh Factory. He said, "You ought to do a show with Melrose." And at first I was like, "Why?" But you know, now I'm enjoying it. And it seems to be going pretty good.
Well, your name is up there in the lore of legendary disc jockeys with, you know, Wolfman Jack and Alan Freed. And, did you ever have any exposure or come into contact with Wolfman Jack?
Yeah, I did. I worked at KLSX. It was KLSX and KRLA. They were in the same building on Wilshire. And they had all the classic rock jocks on one side, Jim Ladd and Shauna was there. Let's see who else was there. Cynthia Fox, Bob Coburn, you know, and Phil Hendry. All the rockers were on one side, and the other side was like Charlie Tuna, you know, Huggy Boy, Humble Harv, and you know, the Real Don Steele, and Wolfman. So our Christmas party was at the we had a crazy Christmas party at the Sea Lion in Malibu, and you know, so I'm there and I'm in the bathroom and here comes Wolfman Jack, and he looked like Wolfman Jack. You know, he had the all black and a black hat, and you know, a big guy, and he had these bandoleros across his chest. It looked like a real DJ, an outlaw DJ. And he goes, "Frazer Smith, all right, man, the party animal, man. Let's go party." So we went out in the parking lot and smoked a joint, and then he goes, "Hey, follow me, man." We go to his car, and he opens the trunk, and he pulls out a gun. And next thing I know, we're out on the beach, and he's shooting the gun at the moon and howling like a wolf.
What a party!
And I go, and all of a sudden we hear sirens in the background. Somebody's called the cops, and so he goes, "Run, Fraze!" I'm running down the beach with Wolfman Jack, and then we're hiding in somebody's carport. You know, and he says, "Don't worry about it, man. I know all the cops. If I don't know them, they know me."
Oh, that's funny. Hey, you know, one of my best friends was Jay Thomas, who you probably ran into many times in LA, and he was famous for telling stories about all the payola that he received. Did you ever partake in payola?
Well, you know, first of all, Jay Thomas, shout out, you know, R.I.P. to him. What a wonderful guy and a great DJ and actor.
Yeah.
Really talented actor. I love that guy. And, well, you know, I just wrote a blog. I just recently got on the internet. You know, I figured I might as well, you know, at some point in my life.
It might take off.
And anyway, I wrote something about that. And they used to, at KMET, the legendary KMET, we had our security guard who would deliver pizzas. A fan would bring pizzas, and in the box would be, you know, bags of weed, bags of cocaine. You know, I know this guy must have had some dough because he would send up ounces of the cocaine.
Wow.
And in the pizza box, I'm surprised that the guard never looked in there to try to steal a slice or something. And, but but he just would deliver these to us for years. And finally, management caught on, but they couldn't fire us because they would have had to fire the entire staff because everybody was indulging in that. And I don't know who that fan was, but thank you.
You're right. He must have had a ton of money.
But getting back to payola.
Well, I never really got any dough for anything. But, I never really did because I kind of missed that phase. I came in just after that, but I was reading some stuff about Alan Freed and those guys. And, yeah, they would get, the big cash offers or party favors or whatever, to play a record. And that's how you broke records back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Jay told me when he was starting out, he was starting out in Jacksonville. But then when he moved to Charlotte in '73, there was massive payolas just to break a.
Well, unfortunately, all I got were the drugs. But at that point in my life, that was fine.
Yep.
Yeah, that was as good as money back in the day. I mean, especially the '70s.
Sure.
That was good stuff.
And what were you making? Maybe $15,000, $18,000 back then?
Oh, a little bit more than that, but not a lot. At first, no, not a lot. And that's what they would try to do. I used to be the house MC at the Starwood. Remember the Starwood Club?
Sort of. Where was
the
it?
Starwood was that like Crescent Heights and Santa Monica.
On Sunset.
Yeah. Well, just down from there. And all the bands started there. All the bands broke there. That's where the industry would come to see bands. And it was run by a notorious gangster. And at the end of the night, you'd go in to get paid, and you'd have some money at one end of the desk, a pile of cocaine at the other end, and a gun on the desk. And he'd say, okay, you can get money or cocaine. And clearly he wanted you to take the cocaine. So I would take the cocaine and then sell it to my friends in the parking lot.
Just as good as money. No doubt about it.
Oh my!
You started.
Got to make some dough, guys.
You started in Detroit. You were only about 19, 20 years old when you started then, right? When you first
I started really young in radio, and I had a job at a little station called WYYY when I was 18. And that's what they said after they hired me. Why didn't we hire this guy? But it was good training because you had to do everything. You were really left alone to do everything. You had to, be a DJ. You had to turn on the transmitter, turn it off at night because it was a daytimer, which meant you had to turn it off at the end of the day. And you'd do sports, you'd do news. You had to go to the news wire and rip and read and get the stuff off the wire and read that. So you learned how to do everything. And that's really how you had to learn how to edit and splice tape. Back then it was tape, and so you had to learn how to splice that stuff. So it was a good learning experience at a little station where you really had to do all the stuff.
Yeah, it's different now. I think because I know show business. When I started in 1986 on Head of the Class, I was an associate producer for a year, and I got to do everything anybody didn't want to do. So I had to do post, I had to do, and I had to learn the business from bottom up. Now, we got so many different people that it's hard to advance anymore because you can never learn what's going on.
Well, I bet you're glad. First of all, great show, Head of the Class. And, congrats on that. And, but you're right. I think that's an advantage when you have to do everything, because later on, it's good to know how to do it all, isn't it?
Yes, because I finally got to the point where I knew enough about what every department did so that nobody could bullshit me. Nobody could say, this, and this. I said, well, that's not true because I know how I knew just enough about how every department works just to make sure they wouldn't fuck with me.
Sure. Now when you go to yell at somebody, you know what you're yelling at them about.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, no, it's an advantage. And that's what, and also at K-Rock, K-Rock was, again, this kind of fledgling little station where really the inmates were running the asylum.
Right.
And, and that was kind of good in a way because, again, you learned how to do everything you kind of had to. I remember my first night on the air, I was with, we had a show called Hollywood Night Shift. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. That was, I was with Phil Austin from Firesign Theater. And it was just kind of an impromptu show. We would just ad-lib comedy for an hour. And we put on sound effect records in the background and just talk over the sound effect records. It was a really weird show. And it was in the Pasadena Hilton in a suite. And, there's like room service trays piled up and everything. And we're in the suite and doing the show. It's our first show. It's the night I met all those guys afterwards. And I remember all of a sudden the station stopped. And this guy jumps out from underneath the station and he opens up a switchblade. And I thought, we're getting jacked here on our first show. Somebody's going to steal, I don't know what, something in the station. And it turned out to be the head engineer, Al Ramirez, and he was using a knife to hotwire the station back on. So
Whoa.
he just hired, he hotwired these wires together, and then all of a sudden we're back on the air. And Phil thought that was ridiculous because he'd been in professional broadcasting for so many years. He was just shaking his head. But that's how that place ran. And yet we had everybody in town listening.
Wow.
And then you moved from K-Rock to KLOS in 79?
Yeah. They offered me a bunch of money to go over there. And it was a weird transition because what had made me popular at K-Rock was that I was kind of thanks to Rodney, I was the king of the new music, and all of a sudden I had to go back to playing the typical classic rock, or in those days they called it AOR, album-oriented rock. And, it was the Eagles and the Stones and Leonard Skinner. And so that went against the grain with the fans from K-Rock, who had been my fans there because they liked all the new stuff. And slowly it worked out because KLOS started assimilating some of that stuff into their playlist. And that's how I got over to KLOS. I was there for about 5 years, and I, caused as much trouble as I possibly could, which is what I think got me the ratings.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us an example of some of the things you did to get in trouble?
Well, I just, I had my boss's car towed, and then I interviewed the guy in the parking lot because I parked in his spot, and he towed my car, so then I had his car towed. And then I did a sign I did a show from the Hollywood Sign that caused a big traffic jam, and the cops got mad at me. And then I did a thing from the Blimp, and I've been banned permanently from the Blimp, guys. I can't go into the Blimp anymore. Which may or may not be a bad thing. And I just did a lot of ridiculous shows. I remember the Surf Punks came in one time. Remember that band, the Surf Punks? Yep. And Dennis Dragon and Drew Steele. And they came in and they brought bags and bags of sand. They probably had 5 feet of sand in the studio. And they had a cut-off version of a Malibu lifeguard tower. And they had bikini chicks and Muscle Beach guys, and they played live in the studio. And I don't think they ever got that sand out of there completely. My boss wanted to kill me. I did the first nude show with Marilyn Chambers from Behind the Green Door. I just did, kind of theme shows, weird theme shows that, sometimes got me in trouble with the cops. I did a show at K-Rock called Christmas in My Car. And I had told people I was living in my car, which I almost was. And then I was having a Christmas party on Hollywood and Vine, and I invited everyone to come down to it. And I had sound effects of helicopters and going overhead and horns honking, and people really thought I was down there. So they got thousands of people that went down there, and it caused a traffic jam. And I was back in the studio in Pasadena, and the cops were mad about that. And then we did we used to do the Rose Parade. We covered the Rose Parade. We do a spoof coverage of Rose Parade where we would tell people to watch it on Channel 5 and then turn down the sound on their TV. And then Peter Crabb and I, he's a guy that worked with Monty Python, and we would ad-lib the parade and just make fun of the parade, which was fine until we tried to do it out there live one time. We were in the stands, and they had us set up with all the other broadcasters out there, and we were just trashing the parade, so they tried to kick us out of the parade, but the fans wouldn't let them do it. The fans went, stuck up for us and hooted down all the cops and everybody. So, I just did a lot of weird stuff like that, and it kind of worked because it got everybody paying attention to the show.
If you had one night that you could recreate and go back and do that night again on the air, or the morning on the air, what show would you redo?
Well, probably it'd be the one I did from Comedy Store. I did a show from Comedy Store in the morning, and it was Missy Shore's idea. She was the original Comedy Store owner, and so we did it. And I didn't really know a lot of these guys because, like a lot of those new bands, you didn't know everybody that was on their way up. And on the lineup was David Letterman, Leno, Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Dice, who else? Shamling. I mean, all people who became huge. They were huge, became huge stars, of course, but nobody knew them then. And I remember Mitzi saying to me, "I got this guy Letterman. Have you heard of him?" And I go, "No." And she goes, "Oh, you're gonna hear about him." And it wasn't long afterwards that he got his show and became huge. But all those guys were on the show. And somebody dropped an F-bomb, and it wasn't Dice. I was surprised. But all those guys did the show, and that was another one where thousands of people showed up at 6 a.m. on Sunset Boulevard, and they just bum rushed the Comedy Store. The cops couldn't control it. It was like a riot because everyone was trying to wedge their way into the store, which only held X amount of people. So that was one that I'll never forget because of the lineup.
Yeah.
Wow, some lineup is right.
I've known a bunch of those guys. I actually I produced Bless This House with Dice, and he was a beauty, boy.
He's a beauty.
He's a beauty.
Isn't he? Yeah. I mean, listen, I love him.
He's the best.
Yeah. I love him. And he's such a heartfelt guy, really, different than his character in a lot of ways. And, a real original. A guy that I've always thought was great. No matter what, I always will stick up for Dice. And he would always do stuff for me. If I had anything, Dice would be there. I remember he did one show with me at KMET where it was Dice with advice. And it was him giving, romantic advice to anyone who wanted it. And they'd call in, and he would just go, "Don't be a pussy," and he'd hang up.
Dating advice from Dice.
Yeah, you know what he used to do on Sundays. He had this gal that he was going around with. He used to dress up as Dice, and he got a really expensive car, like a Rolls Royce Corniche or something. And he would wear cutoff shorts and sneakers, and he would go out in Beverly Hills. And he would go to, $15 million homes and open houses. And he and this gal would come in and they say, "Yeah, okay, I think we can rip out the carpet, or we can put shag carpet here, over these marble floors." And we could, he was
do
just,
all the 50 shit. Yeah,
he would do all the 50 shit and just trash the house. They couldn't get rid of him fast enough. He was a great guy.
That's pretty
He
funny.
was.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome. Have you seen the stuff he's been doing lately that he puts on the internet where he goes out and in New York and he'll go up to people and go, "Do you know who I am?" A lot of the people, the younger people, don't. "Oh, come on, I know you want my autograph." Just the way that he plays it is, he's really a character, and he's a great guy. And all those guys were great on that show, and I didn't even know who Letterman was. I don't think anybody did back then, except, the people that would go to the Comedy Store. And, they were all on the show. Leno was on there. It was, that was a special show.
Wow.
The Comedy Store one time was House of Ill Repute. Is that on the level? I mean, Steve Simone was interviewing me one time, and he told me that that the place is haunted. You any thoughts?
Well, it
about
is
that?
haunted. It is haunted, and it's also it was a place called Ciro's, and it was famous with all the stars. All the big stars would go there. That was the Sinatra era, and Dean and Jerry. There used to be a poster at Comedy Store where Dean and Jerry were playing there, and it was owned by mobsters. And the thing was that they would, if they wanted to off somebody, they would shoot them there or kill them, and that's who the ghosts are. They were haunting the place.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true, but those are the legends. And then it was bought after that by Sammy Shore, who's actually I think there was somebody in between there. Art LeBeau. It was Art LeBeau, the radio guy.
Sure.
Art bought it, and I think that the Shores bought it from him, if I have the story correct. And then Sammy and Mitzi got divorced, and Mitzi got the club in the divorce. So that's how she wound up running it. And Mitzi was really a character. She, but like Rodney had a good ear for music, she had a good eye for talent.
Right.
There's just dozens of stars that came out of that club that she discovered.
Now, Sammy Shore used to open for Sinatra. Is that right? Am I?
Used to open for Elvis.
Elvis. Okay, yeah, he used to open for Elvis. I knew it was somebody huge like that, somebody iconic.
And that's Paulie's dad, and Paulie's an old friend, and of course Paulie was always there in those days as a kid, hanging around, and so all the comics have known him forever.
Did Sammy go?
And
Did Sammy go to the Improv after he split from Mitzi at the Comedy Store?
I don't know what, he was mostly in Vegas, and he would travel, and he was a guest on my show one time, and he was hilarious. Those old comics are really good. They had to work hard to get where they were, and I was surprised at how witty he was. He was really funny. And another guy I forgot to mention who was on that show was Kinnison.
Oh.
Sam was on that morning show, and that got people woken up because he was screaming into the mic. Yeah, and they used to have a Westwood Comedy Store in Westwood, and it was downstairs in the basement room, and Mitzi would never go there and neither would all the big comics. All the big guys were up, Robin Williams and everybody at the Hollywood Store, and the people that were trying to get there would go down to Westwood. And Kinnison had just gotten in town, and we used to put Kinnison up last to drive everybody out so we could go home. Yeah, he would just scream at people. The thing that made him famous later.
Yep.
Oh, and then people would just go, "Get your coat, honey, we're out of here."
Speaking of iconic, I understand Howard Stern was trying to get a hold of you to find out how he could get on the radio.
Well, yeah, I used to get letters, handwritten letters from Howard.
Wow.
Saying, "Hey, I'm trying to get in the business. What should I do?" That kind of thing. And I don't even remember if I ever replied. Not to be rude. I just didn't. You didn't really have time. You were trying to do your show every day, and you were getting. Back then, it was all snail mail, so you would get these bags of mail, and you couldn't return them all. I later became a big fan of his. We're kind of friends. I don't see him hardly ever, but the times I have seen him, he's cool. And off the air, he's a different guy. Again, kind of like Dice. Really cool, kind of respectful guy. And I'm a big fan of what he did. He really kind of surpassed everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Shock. Yeah.
I got a question about that for you. What do you think is the what do you think is the best decade in radio since you started?
Well, I think it depends what you like. I kind of like those old AM jocks. The guys like the real Don Steele and Wolfman and Humble Harv and those kind of guys. They all had crazy nicknames, and they all talked really fast because they had to. They would talk over the post. They talk up to the post, over the beginning of the record, and they got really good at being able to do that. Just be able to end their rap right as the record started, because you had to in those days. You know, those were short records, and they had to pop in and out and talk really fast. And for me, that was my favorite era. That was probably, 50s, 60s.
Okay.
Yeah, I always liked those guys the best, but everybody's got a different taste. Some people just like talk radio, and some people like that. I thought that the era when Stern was really hot was another good era, but it was mostly because of him.
Right.
He was really carrying the ball there. Mark and Brian were on at that same time. Jay Thomas was on at that same time. Jay was a great DJ. So that was a good era too. But I just like those old guys.
Got it. And what do you think is the best bit ever in radio history? Just in quick recollection.
The best bit ever. Well, I always thought the one on WKRP, and they said it was that it was mirroring a real bit. I don't know, where they were dropping the turkeys on Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Yeah.
The turkey drop bit.
Yeah, that's a hard one to top. Although I got in trouble in the blimp. I was throwing stuff out of the blimp.
That's pretty good.
That might not have been a great idea. It was.
What were you throwing out of the blimp? What were you throwing?
Well, T-shirts and
oh, that's great.
And bumper stickers and stuff. But the blimp driver got really pissed. He was like, "Hey man, that stuff will go right through a windshield. What are you doing, bro?" And I go, "Too late, man."
But just a reminder, the WKRP bit, they were supposed to throw turkeys out of the helicopter, but Les Nessman or whoever didn't know that they were real turkeys, and so they were throwing frozen turkeys. Oh,
right.
Out of the helicopter. Yeah. So they were. Can you imagine frozen?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was based on something that really happened.
Yeah, it was based on the blimp.
Yeah, well, maybe. And then there was another thing where, and I think this was Jay Thomas. Jay Thomas did something, I think, where he had a blow-up doll, and they let it go with the station's thing, written all over it, and it went up over the airspace in Burbank Airport, and they had to shut down the airport.
Wow. Might have been.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Might have been.
I think that was Jay.
Yeah. So
that did that.
Do I see Denny McLean on the back of your wall?
Yeah. I'm a Detroit fan for all the Detroit teams.
Why don't you move?
And that's autographed.
Why don't you move your head just a little bit so I can see Denny McLean again?
Where's Denny McLean?
Yeah. No, the other way.
Yeah, can you see?
Nope.
Wait a minute. Where is he?
Look at Frank
There he is.
and the
Frank,
eyeballs.
I got that from
There he is.
The hawk. The
Yeah.
falcon.
Right
Wow.
there.
Wow.
there's Barry Sanders.
Yep.
There's the OK line.
Yep.
All those guys, I got all those from Jay Johnstone. Remember Jay?
Sure.
Played for the Dodgers for all those years and played with the Phillies and the Yankees. Jay was my buddy, and Jay used to do sports on my show, and he was a real character.
Yep. He sure was.
He came on the show many times. We did a show from batting cage. He was giving batting tips to everybody. That was cool. And the other thing I did with the blimp that I thought was interesting, I had given a script. I wrote a script and I gave it to, you may know this guy, Tom Mount. Remember Tom?
Sure. THOM. That's his first.
Yes. And Tom was in the Black Tower over at Universal, his office at this point anyway. And he wasn't getting back to me. He's a great guy. He wasn't getting back to me about my script. And so the blimp guy said, "Well, is there anything you'd like to go?" I said, "Yeah, go to the Black Tower." And I told him to get as close as he could to the tower, which actually was kind of close. and I saw Tom Mount. I knew where his office was. And he had his back turned to the window. So I go, "Hey, Tom," because I knew he listened to my show every day. I go, "Turn around." He looked around, and there's the blimp, 20 feet from him or something. I go, "Ram him!" He flipped over in his chair.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
Yeah, never did read my script. but I tried.
Probably never got it.
Wow.
That probably.
So when you came out at 19, go back to Detroit again. When you first came
Well,
out to LA, were you on an onion skin, or did you get hired by K-Rock to come out here, or you just came out here saying?
Well, no. I came out and just wanted to try to find a station, and I had some buddies, and they were telling me about K-Rock. They go, "This is the hot little station in town. You got to go there because they're tiny, but they're getting all the buzz."
Mm.
And so I went and had a meeting with management there, and it was a sketchy management. They were, supposedly mobsters. I don't know. They were weird guys. And anyway, had this meeting, and they said, well, if you can get a name to go on there with, we'll put you on. So that's when I came up with Phil Austin. I was a Firesign Theater fan, and Phil was a member of Firesign Theater. And so I said, well, how about Phil Austin? And at that time, they were really hot. So they said, okay, yeah, if you get him, we'll put you on. So that's how I got on the air with Hollywood Night Shift. And again, that's when we would go out there and just kind of ad-lib our show. We later added a guy called Michael C. Gwynn. And Michael's a character actor. He's been in a lot of stuff. He was in the Howard Stern movie. He's been in a lot of things. He's an old school DJ, one of those old school DJs. And so that was our show. And it just blew up. We started getting all kinds of buzz. And then they gave me my own show.
Wow.
So that was so you came out here on an onion skin, man. You just had balls. Did you have any money in your pocket? You just took a shot?
None
Maybe
at
last
all.
a month? Maybe you got enough to last a month, yeah?
Yeah, that was about right. But I started getting stuff right away. It was weird. And so everything kind of worked out. But yeah, I didn't have anything. I just came out just blind. And I came out with a buddy of mine who was a football player. He was a Michigan. He played for Michigan, and he came out here at the same time. So I hitched a ride with him. Got out here. We just stayed with friends, and they were the ones who said to go to K-Rock. And all of a sudden, K-Rock was the hottest thing on the planet. It wasn't just in LA. Everybody was looking at K-Rock because it was. They were the place you could go for the new music. So London, New York, everybody had their eyes on K-Rock, and bands would come over and wind up staying at the station. They would live at this. I think we had the Clash living there for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And they're all friends of Rodney's. And it was just a wild, wild west. We had a crazy crew. The DJs were all like, used car dealers and drug dealers, and just a crazy group of DJs. It was a movie in there somewhere because it was such an odd alignment.
Well, luckily you didn't partake in any of it. Sex, drugs.
No, I haven't. Absolutely not, guys. And I had. It was my job to keep everybody else away from it too.
You were home reading Heidi, I'm sure. Page at a time.
Derek, you got any last questions?
Yeah. Michigan. Are they gonna? How are they gonna beat? Well, you're cut out. Oh, Michigan. What's the deal?
I'm really worried about them.
Really?
I'm worried about them. I after that game last week against Texas, they got clobbered. They won the Natty last year, which was thrilling for all the Michigan fans. But I think Harbaugh left the cupboard bare when he took off for the Chargers. And I don't, they graduated so many top players.
Oh, okay.
I just don't think they're going to have a great year. Yeah, I'm afraid.
Ohio State's loaded up, too. It looks like Ohio State's got a huge powerhouse this year.
Yeah, they're going to be good. They're going to be good again. Yeah. So Michigan fans are, we're crying in that beer.
If I was to ask you or say to you that Michigan is one of the most beautiful states in America, would you agree with that?
Oh yes, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful state. In the summer.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, winter time. Well, if you're into winter sports, it's still beautiful in the winter. But it really it is beautiful. Just the foliage and they've got the Great Lakes, and it's just a beautiful state.
Yeah, great.
Billy, any last questions?
Just a quick question before you go, and thanks very much for coming. Frazer.
Yeah,
It was
really.
great having you on, man. Great interviewing you. Good seeing you again. It's been a lot of years, but it was. I enjoyed my short stint with you just because.
I remember when you came on the show. Yeah, and that was fun. And how'd you do with the book?
Yeah, it sold, maybe 9,000 copies, which ain't bad for somebody who ain't nobody. It was good. It was self-promotion.
That's per week, Billy. Stop.
Yeah, per week my ass. Per week my ass. But I got a quick question for you before you go. What is your favorite comedy club to perform in now?
Well, I guess, I like them all. And there's something good about all of them. Laugh Factory's really been a home because Jamie Masada was my sidekick on my radio show for all those years. He was Buddy, who was a character, just kind of a nefarious foreign guy who was my sidekick. And so I've always loved Laugh Factory. I was there the day it opened. But I still like Comedy Store, I think, best because it has all that history.
Yeah.
I still host there every Monday night. And that original room, which is where all the big stars came out of, like Letterman and Jim Carrey and Robin Williams, Pryor, Kinison, everybody came out of that room. So I'm there every Monday night, and it still has that feel of that history. So I think that's probably my favorite.
Well, tell your listeners one more time before you go about your podcast, the names of your podcast again, so we can reiterate them. The
podcast is called Puck Off, and it's you can get it on the All Things Comedy Network. It's Bill Burr's network, and I'm also on the Laugh Factory network with Melrose Larry, and that is called Jokers. That's the name of that one. And I'm going to be hopefully back on KLOS 95.5 coming up soon again.
Great.
Wow, that's great news.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Great having you back on the air, pal. Thanks very much for showing up.
You're still too hip for the room.
Well, Puck Off.
It is. It's a pleasure, guys. I really appreciate it, and I am too hip, and I got to go.
Bye.
All right, brother. Take care.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Yeah, great interview. He's a great guy. Really nice guy. A lot of history there with him, huh?
Yep, a lot of history there. A lot of music history, and everybody who thinks that this is the era to live in didn't live in the 70s.
Or the 60s.
Or the 60s.
I met Alan Freed when I was a kid. I tell you that story. They filmed Rock Around the Clock by the studio in the Bronx. And I was playing cards, 2-cent poker. That's how small. I was 6 years old. And Frankie Lyman came out, Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, and he sat down and played cards with us for a little bit. And Alan Freed, they were filming the movie, Rock Around the Clock, so I got to meet Alan Freed when I was a kid.
I'm going to pass on the 60s.
Yeah. Well,
this is the 50s.
In the 50s.
You should pass on it. 20th
40s.
20th century.
30s.
You should pass on all of those things. All right.
All right.
Who else is coming up? Well, now we got Joe West.
Joe West himself.
What a show. What a fucking
himself.
show.
What a fucking show. What a fucking show,
What a
man.
fucking show. It's unbelievable.
It's real.
Hang on a second. Derek, can you bring in Joe West?
You're in. You're not out.
You're in.
You're out.
You're out of here. In your honor, Joe. Speaking of Joes, you just got back from playing in Joe Namath's Celebrity Golf Tournament. Did you not?
Yeah, it was a great event. It was unbelievable, and I saw some friends of yours up there. You guys remember the guy that played Bubba in the
Bubba Gilliam.
Yeah.
Bubba Gilliam.
Yeah.
I was supposed to see him 2 weeks ago, and then I had to go up to Pebble Beach to see my wife. But Bubba was out in Los Angeles, and he was signing Blazing Saddles at Warner Brothers, and I couldn't get over to see him that day. How's he doing? He's 88 years old, isn't he?
No, he's not that old.
No, I'm serious. He is. He is. He's 88.
Well, he sure looks good for 88.
Yep. Who else did you see?
There was Chris McDonald at the same table. And this guy that was the linebacker for the Jets who played at Penn State, Greg Buttle, was the kind of like the MC of the whole event. He actually said when he introduced Namath, he says, here's a guy that lost money going from Alabama to the New York Jets.
That's a great line.
Yeah. But yeah, they had a whole book here that, I mean, you probably know most of the actors and people. Chris Berman was there from ESPN, and there were some ball players there. John Franco was there. Johnny Damon was there. Bobby Bell, Daniel Baldwin was there. I'm just going through.
You're bigger than all of them so far, Joe.
Mark Clayton, Bob Crable, Johnny Damon, Joe DeLamalure. Remember him playing with the Buffalo Bills?
Yep.
When I told him that I knew Ernie Harwell, I couldn't get rid of him.
We should have had you on before we had Frazer on, because Frazer Smith was our guest just prior to you coming on. He was a Detroit guy. He would have gone crazy over Ernie Harwell.
Oh gosh, and you know what? It was funny because when I told him, I said, Bill Slayback and I did a video and a song for Ernie when we found out he had cancer. It was called "When the Dodgers Were in Brooklyn," and you can find it on YouTube. Just put in Ernie Harwell, Joe West, and it'll come up. It'll be black and white, and then you just press play, and it's the story of his career, because Ernie Harwell was traded from the Atlanta Crackers. He was an announcer for the Atlanta Crackers in the minor leagues, for a backup catcher to the the Brooklyn Dodgers. And it's first known ever trade of a ball player for an announcer. and he worked for the Dodgers for, I want to say, 3-4 years. And then he went across town to work for the New York Giants. And he was actually doing the television feed when Bobby Thompson hit the home run to win the pennant. And of course, you hear the guy go, the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant. Well, that wasn't Ernie. Ernie was on the television feed. And to this day, they can't find Ernie Harwell's voice when Bobby Thompson hit the home run. And he was there.
And you know what else they can't find? They have no idea who's got the baseball or where the baseball went.
Oh,
get out of here! Really, the shot heard around the world. They don't have that baseball.
They don't have any idea. And a screenplay was written about trying to find the ball, and they never found the ball that Bobby Thompson hit for 1951.
You know, our number one fan, Lily Thompson. That's her uncle.
Oh, is that right?
Bobby Thomps's her uncle. Yeah, she's our number one fan, just about. Tell me, how's Namath's knees look, Joe? Is he walking okay? I mean, is he both canes or what? Or what?
He was walking decent. He's having trouble with his wrist. He can't play golf anymore because he hurt his wrist. But going back to Ernie Harwell, he left the Giants and went to Baltimore. A lot of people don't know that he announced for Baltimore. And then he went for over 35 years announcing for the Detroit Tigers.
Yep. And his battery mate was Al Kaline, wasn't he?
Late in his career, yeah. Al loved him. Al. When I showed Al this video that I just told you guys about, it was Al Kaline's rookie card that we used as the video when we brought up his name. The last verse goes like, "When Kaline roamed right field and little boys dream." And Al got a tear in his eye when I showed it to him. He was touched by it. So Kaline was a great guy. I got to know him a bit through Rod. We would run into each other at sports card shows. And he was a well, you know, I saw your interview with Rod the other day.
Yes, and?
That was awesome. It was really cool. But the one thing you didn't bring up was that he thought I kicked him out of a game, and I never did that.
I know. We finally got to the bottom of that. It was another umpire who kicked him out of the game, but he swore on his life.
I know he did.
That's
great. It was you. Hey, what'd you think of that Twins minor league catcher got thrown out of the game because he was tipping pitches to the other team?
He got kicked off the team.
He got kicked off the team. He blew up his career. And he asked. He just wanted this. He wanted to get the season over with. Was his reason? What do you think of that? I mean, and Joe, if you were the umpire and somebody did that, what would your feelings be? What would
the first thing I would ask him was, are you trying to get in their head? You know, And then if he said no, I'm telling them what they're getting because I want the season to end. I'd have kicked him out of the game.
Wow.
I would have, because they have a responsibility to the game just like everybody else on the field. You can't do stuff like that. That's wrong.
I mean, can you imagine working your entire career to get to that point where, I mean, to be a AA catcher and be a good player enough to succeed at the AA level, throw it all away in like 2 minutes, a minute? It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's not even fathomable. There's it's pitiful. And the first time I took over as president of the umpires union, I told Bob DuPay, because they were nervous about me taking over the union, and he came and says, "What can we expect from you?" And I said, "Our first responsibility is to the game of baseball. It's not to the commissioner's office, it's to the game of baseball. And our second responsibility is to our profession. And that might not mean the union. And our third responsibility is to do what we know in our heart is morally honest and correct. And if we do those things in that order, nothing we do will be wrong. We'll get criticized because that's the nature of the job, but nothing we do will be wrong."
Morally, I'm sorry. Morally and ethically correct. Billy, you could never have been an umpire.
I would have been all right till somebody said, "Hey, for the right amount, can you look the other way on this one?"
Oh my God, that's
I might have
day
took
one.
a small stipend, to look the other way.
That's day
I wouldn't
one.
have lasted long in the majors, that's for sure.
For our little Irish friend, I need to tell you that prior to this tournament, Rita and I went to Ireland for 10 days.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
man.
We were in Dublin for 2 days. And we took a train to Galway. And when we got there, everybody's getting off the train because that's the last stop. And of course, the terminal was closed. They were doing construction. So we're walking around the building because we got to go to this little hotel. And I see the buses go around the building. So I figured, well, we don't want to get on a bus. We want a cab. So sure enough, Rita flagged down a cab. And as soon as she flagged it down, this guy said, "We're in the queue." I didn't see any cabs anywhere, right? And so she was embarrassed that she took somebody's place. But I don't think she did. I think this guy was just being,
Irish?
trying to take the cab.
Being Irish.
No, it was. I tell you what's funny. I tell you what's really funny. The Irish people are so friendly and so nice. I can see where they call us the dirty Americans, because everything they did was with a smile on their face. Of course, most of the time we were in a pub, so that
That's lovely.
You drinking Guinness?
was good.
Drinking Guinness? I know
Oh.
they didn't have any Bud Light there for Rita.
No, but I would drink a pint of Guinness to every half pint that she had. And we took a tour of the Guinness factory, or I guess you call it a brewery.
Storehouse, sir. Storehouse.
Yeah, is that what you call it? Yeah. Anyway, we took that tour, and then you go up the top of the building to the end, and in the end they give you a couple of drinks of Guinness. Anyway, at the very top, you see out on the city of Dublin, and there are these red letters on the wall that tell you what that building is and what this building is, and I mean it's very interesting. We also went to Jameson, by the way, so it was really an educational trip. But we went to
Interactive.
Cork County?
we went to Kong, where The Quiet Man was filmed. Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne. There's a big statue out in front of the little building where they filmed most of it. We went to the Ashford Castle. Then we went to Killarney, to the Adair Manor, where they're going to have I guess they're having the Ryder Cup there in 2027. And it was really funny. The driver we got after that, because we had no idea where we were going or what we were doing. So the lady that put the thing together gave us a driver. And the last driver we had said, this is usually I deal with golfers. And they send me 4, or they send me 6, or they send me 8. And so the guy that keeps sending me these golfers said that, my guys are complaining that they don't have anything to do after they finish playing golf. He said, so why don't you take them and show them a church, or show them a couple of 3 churches, show them a couple of 3 castles, and then show them a pub. He said, no, on second thought, show them one church, one castle, and 3 pubs, and they'll be just fine.
And you had never been to Europe, had you?
No, it was the first time I'd ever been over there.
That's crazy.
You loved Ireland, though, right? And
I
Rita
did.
too. Rita loved it too, right? Everybody loved it.
She absolutely loved it. And you know what? We went to this one place the last day we were in Kinsale.
Kinsale, sure, the old head. The old head of Kinsale. It's a great golf course down there, by the way.
We had lunch at the old head. We didn't bring our clubs because we were going to be tourists. But old head is beautiful. But the thing that I remember the most about the whole trip was there was this nurse who'd gotten her nursing degree in Ireland, and she'd gone to New York and worked for a New York hospital, and she'd befriended the chapel, or I don't know what you would call him exactly. He was evidently the priest or something for the New York Fire Department, who got killed in 9/11. And being that, that has just transpired, remembrance of that, I thought I'd bring this up because there's a place that she had over there between her 2 brothers in Ireland that she asked them if she could build a remembrance garden for those firemen that were lost in 9/11. And there's 343 trees that have been planted on this plot, and there's a fireman's name by every tree. And it gave you chill bumps just to see it. And it was, and our driver said, I got to show you this. This is not on the tour, but I want to show you because I think you'd appreciate it. And it was really touching. It was really cool.
Wow.
So,
that is touching.
So the World Series is coming up. You umpired your share of them. Can you tell me what it was like for you the first time you were behind the plate, or what's your first World Series experience, and how nervous were you?
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of funny because, and I noticed this right off the bat. When you work the World Series, those are the 2 best teams that are playing at the time. The World Series isn't hard like the league championship or the divisional, and none of those are as hard as a 1-game playoff when everything's on the line for just 1 game. But my first World Series in '92, I had the Braves and the Blue Jays, and my first plate job was in Toronto. And everything's going along good, and all of a sudden, Jeff Blauser strikes out, and then they throw the runner out at second base, and Bobby Cox slams the helmet down on the top step of the dugout, and it comes out in the middle of the infield. So I find Blauser, thinking he threw the helmet. And everybody in the dugout said, he didn't throw it, he didn't throw it. I said, okay, who threw it? And Bobby Cox walked right up in front, just like he's going to fall on his sword, and said, I did it. So here I am, my first plate job in the big leagues. I kick out Bobby Cox. And, if I hadn't kicked him out, I think Jerry Crawford would have, because he was running across the infield about the time that I kicked out Bobby. But that's your first plate job in the big leagues. You got to kick somebody out. You don't really want to do that,
Well, I remember your last plate job was in a 1-game playoff with the Dodgers and St. Louis. And how did that game end?
In a home run. Guy hit a two-run home run in the bottom of the 9th. And Rita had already figured it out. She said, this is going to be his last game. So she went to one of the ushers and she said, can you get a picture of Joe when he comes off the field so I can give him a hug when he comes off the field, thinking this is going to be his last game. And so the ushers and all the people, they're helping her out, get set up for the picture and everything. And when the guy hit the home run, we're trying to get off the field. And the media's trying to get on the field. And she gives me a big hug over my right shoulder. And all of a sudden, this great big guy wraps his arm around my left shoulder. It's Magic Johnson.
Wow.
He photobombed us.
Yeah.
So as he's standing there, Rita looks up and says, I really didn't want him in the picture.
Well, earlier in that game, which I went to with Rita and Jennifer, Rita's niece, I was wearing an Apollo 15 hat, and there was a fellow who was walking up the aisle, and he walked by me once, and he looked at me, and he walked by me again. He looked at me, and then he stopped, and he goes, "Dave Scott."
Commander.
Now General.
Oh yeah, that's great.
He just made General 3 weeks ago.
That's great.
So that was a good
That's
sign.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Except he's not 93, so I was thinking maybe maybe in another life. But geez,
That's a great story you said before, especially on 9/11 anniversary. I was home for 9/11. I was in New York, and I went down to my company. Had their 150th anniversary. It just happened to be a day before 9/11 that we've been operating for 150 years, my company. And our company was what they call the hard luck company. We had lost 6 or 7 guys, during the period of the 150 years before 9/11, of course, which changed the whole equation, But you were talking about those trees that were planted, 343 trees, and that was Father Michael Judge he was talking about, no doubt, right? It was Mickey Judge.
Yes.
Father Michael,
Yep.
yeah. An unbelievable guy. And if there was such a thing as a saint on earth, it
That
would
was
be
him.
Father Michael. I
Yep.
mean, just an incredible guy. When everybody was leaping off the World Trade Center, Father Michael was inside, and they told him, "The building's coming down. You got to get out of here." And he said, "These people need last rites, and I'm doing what I do." And he wouldn't leave. And he was victim number 1 out
Yeah.
of 343 guys.
I remember.
He was the first guy.
I remember. So what else?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Joe.
he was best of friends with this nurse that put this together.
Yeah, he was.
He knew her from the New York hospital, and she's since passed away from cancer. But it was a big deal for her to do that, and it's one of the scenes you need to see if you go to Ireland.
Yeah. Well, I'll be going to Ireland next August or September. I'm definitely got to go back over there. There's a few cousins I got to see before they get buried. They're close, It's like 91, 87, that kind of thing.
Yeah. What you got? Any more golf tournaments coming up?
Oh, well, we go to Pebble Beach the week after Thanksgiving, and we play in that World Series of Golf. It's and you've been there with us for that one. That's
I have.
That's where you met Peter Sobolov and
Yep.
and the Yogi Berra people. He's such a big Yankee fan. It's so fun.
He's an owner of the Yankees. He owns like 1% or something.
Yeah,
He always invites me to New York. Come sit in the owner's box.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think he bought that percentage of the Yankees because they wouldn't give him the film footage for the Yogi Berra thing.
Wow.
And he still paid way too much money for it because he told you what he paid for it. I remember that you almost fell out of your chair.
Well,
1%.
he had to have it to pay it.
Yeah. But I think I've told you the story about him, and we're on the third hole, right there by the road goes in the back of Pebble, and this big Escalade pulls up and parks. This great big guy gets out of the Escalade, steps over the fence, and it's Reggie Jackson. And you know how Peter's such a big fan. When Reggie stepped over the fence, here's a guy who's probably a billionaire, and he can't talk. He's like a little kid.
Wow.
I'm going, Peter, this is Reggie Jackson. And it was hilarious. And to this day, I remind him of it. He laughs,
I was with Reggie up in Pebble the last time I was there. I stopped by his shop where he's got all his cars, and we just spent, half an hour bullshitting and hanging out. It was fun. I mean, he's now 77, 78 years old. I give him credit for what he said about Alabama in the 60s when he played there. He was just not a pretty sight for a black ball player.
No, and I think his manager was John McNamara, wasn't it?
Yep.
And John
stood up for him.
Yeah, he did. He stood up for him. It was I mean, of course, it's like Pee Wee Reese taking up for Jackie Robinson.
Yep.
But hopefully the world is turning a better way from now on. So it's
slowly,
yeah,
but it's turning. It's turning. Well, Joe, good to have you on again. Thanks for
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for dropping in, and I hope to see you soon.
Well, thank you. I look forward to it. Take care.
Thanks for the kind words about the homeland, my friend.
Pleasure, sir. Pleasure, sweet Joe.
Give Rita a hug for us.
I'll do it.
Thank you, sir.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
So,
He's always a good guy.
always a great guy, always a great guest, always got great stories.
Yep.
Who do you think is going to win the World Series? Let me pick your brain.
Well, why don't you tell me who's going to be in it now?
Well, take a pick. I mean, you got to pick a team that you think is best team, right? Nobody dominant?
There's nobody down.
Really?
Who-
Anybody's up for grabs?
Whoever,
I mean,
whoever
he
gets
just says it with like such conviction, like he knows.
I know whoever gets hot is going to win.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough.
I mean, so call Billy and tell him to drop some dollars on the hot team.
I'll call Bill and I say, who do the wise guys like?
Who do the wise guys like? Who's favored to win it all?
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah.
But they get it.
All right, we've beat this up enough for one day. Let's say goodbye.
Say goodbye. Say goodbye out there.
Say goodbye,
out there.
Derek.
Goodbye, sweethearts. Let's say goodnight.
Okay, with
What a voice. What a voice.
that, I'm taking my headsets off.
Launch the million ships.